In 1995, a grieving grandfather walked into the Dallas Police Department with a name, a suspect, evidence. He told them exactly who took his grandson. They laughed at him, called him paranoid, threatened him with harassment charges if he didn't stop calling. 31 years later, when they finally arrested the man, Sterling Gable, they found 9 children in his basement, 6 of them taken after 1995, after the police refused to listen, May 18, 2023. 6:47 a.m. Police vehicles converge on a quiet residential street in suburban Dallas. No sirens, no flashing lights. Just the deliberate, controlled movement of law enforcement closing in on a target they've been watching for weeks. The house looks ordinary. Single-story ranch. Beige siding. A lawn that's mowed every Sunday like clockwork. The kind of place where neighbors wave at each other and kids ride bikes until sunset. But this morning, those neighbors are about to learn something that will shatter their sense of safety forever. Detective Raymond Torres approaches the front door, search warrant in hand. Behind him, a team of officers fans out across the property. They've rehearsed this, planned every detail, because the man inside this house has evaded capture for 31 years. 31 years of living freely while family suffered. 31 years of blending in while his victims remained buried in silence. The door opens. An elderly man stands there in a bathrobe, coffee mug in hand. He's 74 years old, thin gray hair, reading glasses perched on his nose. He looks confused, mildly annoyed at the disruption to his morning routine. "Can I help you, officers?" His name is Sterling Gable, and within the next 6 hours, investigators will discover something in his basement that will make hardened detectives physically ill. Evidence that will connect him to not 1, not 2, but 9 child disappearances spanning 3 decades, 9 families who never got to say goodbye, 9 children who never made it home. Torres reads Gable his rights. The old man listens, calm, almost bored, as if this is a minor inconvenience rather than the end of a decades-long killing spree. "I'd like to call my lawyer," Gable says politely. Behind him, search teams are already moving through the house. Living room, kitchen, bedrooms. Everything appears normal. Dated furniture, stacks of newspapers. A life lived quietly, unremarkably. Then someone finds the basement door. It's locked. Not with a standard lock, with a deadbolt and a padlock. Industrial strength. The kind of security that raises immediate red flags. "We're going to need bolt cutters," an officer radios. Gable's expression doesn't change, but something flickers in his eyes, just for a second. Not fear, not panic, satisfaction, as if he's been waiting for this moment, as if some part of him wanted to be caught. The lock gives way. The door swings open, and what they find inside will answer questions that have haunted Texas law enforcement for over 3 decades. But to understand how it came to this, how a predator operated freely for 31 years in one of America's largest cities, we need to go back. Back to where this nightmare began. Back to the summer of 1992. Back to the day an 8-year-old boy vanished from his grandparents' home and a system designed to protect children failed in the most catastrophic way possible. July 14, 1992, Dallas, Texas. The temperature hits 103 degrees by mid-afternoon, the kind of heat that turns car interiors into ovens and makes asphalt soft under your feet. Most families stay inside, air conditioning running full blast. But for 8-year-old twins Jace and Joel Mitchell, summer heat means freedom, no school, no schedules. Just endless days at their grandparents' house while their mother works double shifts at Methodist Hospital. She's a nurse, single parent, doing everything she can to keep food on the table and a roof over their heads. Arthur and Nora Mitchell's home is a sanctuary. 2 stories, big backyard with a tire swing that the boys have claimed as their own personal territory. The refrigerator is always stocked with orange soda and Nora's homemade cookies, the kind of place where childhood memories are supposed to be made. Safe memories, happy memories. That's what it was supposed to be. Jace and Joel are identical twins, but anyone who knows them can tell them apart instantly. Joel is cautious, thoughtful, the kind of kid who looks both ways 3 times before crossing the street. He likes puzzles, likes figuring things out, likes understanding how things work. Jace is fire, bold, impulsive. The first one to climb the tallest tree, the last one to come inside when it gets dark. He's the twin who makes Joel laugh when he's taking life too seriously, the one who turns ordinary days into adventures. They fight over everything. Who gets the top bunk? Who gets the last cookie? Whose turn it is to pick what they watch on TV? Normal 8-year-old stuff. The kind of fights you're supposed to grow out of. The kind of rivalries that turn into inside jokes when you're adults, sitting around at family gatherings, remembering when life was simple. Except Jace and Joel will never get that chance. Because on this particular Tuesday in July, while Arthur is grilling hamburgers in the backyard and Nora is making potato salad in the kitchen, something happens that will destroy this family in ways they can't even comprehend yet. Their mother drops them off at 5:30 p.m. She's exhausted from back-to-back shifts, but she kisses both boys on the forehead, reminds them to listen to their grandparents, promises to pick them up tomorrow morning. "Be good," she tells them. "We will," they chorus back. She has no idea those will be the last words she ever speaks to one of her sons. No idea that by tomorrow morning her life will be split into 2 distinct halves, before and after. No idea that she's leaving one of her children in a house where danger is already waiting. Because while Arthur is outside flipping burgers and Nora is chopping celery, someone is watching. Someone who has been watching for weeks. Someone who knows their routine, knows when the boys arrive, knows that the back gate doesn't latch properly, knows that in this quiet, tree-lined neighborhood, people don't lock their doors until bedtime. Someone who has done this before, and someone who is about to do it again. Dinner is perfect. That's what Nora will tell police later, her voice breaking. Everything was perfect. The burgers were cooked just right. The boys were laughing. Arthur told his terrible jokes that made everyone groan. It was a normal Tuesday evening, the kind they'd had 100 times before. After dinner, Nora sends both boys upstairs to brush their teeth and get ready for bed. It's 7:45 p.m., still light outside, but bedtime is bedtime, even in summer. Joel goes upstairs first. He's the obedient one, always following the rules. He brushes his teeth, changes into his pajamas, Star Wars his favorite, and waits for his brother. 5 minutes pass, then 10. Jace isn't coming. Joel heads back downstairs, expecting to find his twin sneaking another cookie or trying to convince their grandfather to let them stay up late. But when he reaches the kitchen, Jace isn't there. "Where's your brother?" Nora asks, drying her hands on a dish towel. "I thought he was down here." Something shifts in the air. Not panic yet. Just the first whisper of concern. "Jace?" Nora calls out. "Time for bed, sweetie." No answer. Arthur checks the living room, the bathroom, the den where they keep the TV. "Jace, come on now. Your grandmother's calling you." Nothing. The house isn't big. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, living areas you can see from one end to the other. There aren't many places for an 8-year-old to hide. "Maybe he's outside," Arthur says, heading for the back door. But when he steps into the backyard, it's empty. The tire swing sways slightly in the evening breeze. The gate, the one that never latches properly, is open. Arthur's heart starts pounding. "Nora!" he calls back into the house, trying to keep his voice steady. "When did you last see Jace?" "Right after dinner. I sent him upstairs with Joel." "He's not upstairs, and he's not in the house." Now the panic comes, fast and sharp. They search again, closets, under beds, the garage, the small storage shed in the corner of the yard where Arthur keeps his tools. They call his name over and over, voices getting louder, more desperate. Joel stands in the kitchen watching his grandparents tear through the house. He doesn't understand yet, doesn't grasp that this isn't a game, that his brother isn't hiding, that something has gone terribly, irreversibly wrong. At 8:47 p.m., Arthur Mitchell picks up the phone and dials 911. "My grandson is missing," he tells the dispatcher, his voice shaking. "He was here 20 minutes ago. We can't find him anywhere." "How old is your grandson, sir?" "8. His name is Jace Mitchell, 8 years old." The dispatcher asks more questions. Description: what he was wearing, when they last saw him. Arthur answers as best he can, but his mind is racing, trying to make sense of something that makes no sense. How does a child vanish from a locked house in 20 minutes? Where could he have gone? And why isn't he answering when they call his name? The answers to those questions will take 31 years to discover. And when they finally come, they'll be worse than anyone imagined. Police arrive within 12 minutes. By 9:30 p.m., the entire block is cordoned off. Flashlights cut through the darkness. K-9 units strain against their leashes, following scent trails that lead nowhere. Neighbors emerge from their homes, forming search parties that spread out across the neighborhood. Joel sits on the front porch steps, wrapped in a blanket someone gave him, even though the temperature is still in the 80s. He watches strangers search for his brother. He keeps thinking Jace will jump out from behind a tree, laughing at the elaborate prank he's pulled. That's something Jace would do, push things too far, not realize when a joke stops being funny. But hours pass. Midnight comes and goes. The search continues under portable floodlights that turn night into day. Jace doesn't come home. By morning, the media has descended. News vans line the street. Reporters shove microphones in Arthur's face, asking how he feels, what he thinks happened, whether he has a message for whoever took his grandson. Arthur can barely form words. His hair, dark brown yesterday, seems to have lightened overnight. The stress etched into every line of his face. "Please," he says to the cameras, his voice cracking, "if someone has my grandson, just bring him home. He's 8 years old. He needs his family. Please." The plea plays on every news station in Texas, but it doesn't bring Jace back. What it does is trigger a frenzy of tips. Dozens of calls pour into the police hotline, people claiming they saw a boy matching Jace's description, a white van in the area, a suspicious man at a nearby park. And one name comes up repeatedly: Franklin Moss. Moss lives 4 blocks away, 36 years old, single, works odd construction jobs, drives a van with tinted windows, has a record, nothing major, just the kind of minor offenses that add up to a bad reputation in a small community. Public intoxication, a bar fight a decade ago, unpaid traffic tickets. But in the chaos following Jace's disappearance, minor offenses become evidence. Odd behavior becomes guilt. The van with tinted windows becomes proof of predatory intent. On July 17th, 72 hours after Jace vanished, police arrested Franklin Moss. The media erupts. Camera crews swarm his house. Headlines declare, "Suspect arrested in Mitchell case." Press conferences feature detectives promising justice, assuring the community that they've got their man. For 2 weeks, it feels like closure is coming. Dallas breathes a collective sigh of relief. Parents let their children play outside again. The neighborhood begins to heal, then the case falls apart. Moss has an alibi, not a weak one, not a questionable one. An ironclad, impossible-to-dispute alibi. On July 14th, the day Jace disappeared, Franklin Moss was 40 miles away in Fort Worth, working a construction site. Time cards confirm it. His supervisor confirms it. Security footage from the site confirms it. He was there from 7 a.m. until 6:30 p.m. He couldn't have been in Dallas. Couldn't have been anywhere near Arthur and Nora's house. Couldn't have taken Jace Mitchell. On July 31st, all charges were dropped. Franklin Moss walks out of jail a free man, but his life is destroyed. His house has been vandalized. Death threats spray-painted across his door. His employer fired him. Neighbors who've known him for years won't make eye contact. The police issued a brief statement acknowledging the error. No apology, no compensation. Just a quiet admission that they got it wrong. And while Dallas was busy celebrating the arrest of an innocent man, the real predator had a 2-week head start. 2 weeks to cover his tracks. 2 weeks to disappear. 2 weeks that turned into 31 years. Because after Franklin Moss was released, the investigation stalled. Leads dried up. The tip line went quiet. Detectives moved on to other cases, fresher cases, cases with actual evidence. The Mitchell family was left with nothing but questions and a grief so heavy it crushed everything in its path. Arthur stopped sleeping. Nora stopped eating. Their daughter, Jace and Joel's mother, moved through life like a ghost, present but not really there. And Joel, the surviving twin, learned what it meant to be invisible, the one who lived while his brother died, the one who had to watch his family fall apart piece by piece, the one who would spend the next 3 decades searching for answers that everyone else had given up on. Before we dive in, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. A lawyer told me that making YouTube videos about system failures won't change anything, that I'm wasting my time because people just scroll and forget. Help me prove him wrong. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and show him that when enough people pay attention, systems have to answer. The weeks after Franklin Moss walks free are worse than the weeks after Jace disappeared. At least during those first 72 hours, there was hope. Frantic, desperate hope, but hope nonetheless. The kind that keeps you awake at night, staring at the phone, waiting for it to ring with good news. But after Moss is released, that hope dies. What replaces it is something far more corrosive. The realization that no one is coming to save you. That the system you trusted to protect your family has failed. That the detectives who promised justice are moving on to other cases. That your child's life matters less than their clearance rate. Arthur Mitchell doesn't accept this quietly. He becomes obsessive, borderline manic. He converts the guest bedroom into what Nora calls the war room, walls covered with maps, newspaper clippings, timelines written in manic scrawl. He files Freedom of Information requests. He calls the police department daily. He corners detectives in parking lots, demanding updates they don't have. Mr. Mitchell, we're doing everything we can, they tell him, but Arthur knows better. He can see it in their eyes, the way they check their watches when he talks, the way they shuffle papers and avoid eye contact. They've already moved on. His hair, which turned white that first terrible week, never returns to its original color. People who've known him for decades stop recognizing him. Not just because of the physical changes, but because the man he was before July 14, 1992, no longer exists. That version of Arthur Mitchell, the one who grilled burgers on Tuesdays and told terrible jokes and believed the world was fundamentally safe, died the night Jace vanished. Nora handles grief differently. She doesn't rage. She doesn't investigate. She simply stops. Stops cooking the meals she used to make, stops tending her garden, stops answering the phone when friends call to check on her. But there's one thing she refuses to stop doing. Every night she sets the table for 4 people, 4 plates, 4 glasses, 4 sets of silverware arranged with the precision of a woman who refuses to accept reality. Jace's chair remains empty. His plate remains full. He might come home hungry, she tells Arthur, when he gently suggests she doesn't need to do this anymore. He needs to know there's always a place for him here. Joel watches all of this from the edges. At 8 years old, he doesn't have the vocabulary to describe what's happening to his family. Doesn't understand words like trauma or grief or systemic failure. All he knows is that his brother disappeared, and somehow that disappearance is eating his grandparents alive. He stops asking when Jace is coming home, stops talking about his twin in present tense, stops expecting anyone to fix this, and something hardens inside him, something that will define the rest of his life. The community tries to help at first. Casseroles appear on the doorstep. Neighbors organize prayer vigils. Someone starts a fund to help with the search effort. But as months turn into years, the support dries up. People move on. They have to. Life doesn't pause for other people's tragedies. By 1995, the Mitchell case is filed away in the cold case archives. Another unsolved disappearance in a city that sees dozens every year. Another family left to pick up pieces that will never fit back together. But here's what no one realizes yet. While the police have given up, while the community has moved on, while even Nora is beginning to lose hope, Arthur is just getting started. And his 8-year-old grandson is watching. Learning, absorbing every lesson about what happens when the system fails you. Lessons that will matter 30 years from now. Growing up as half of a whole is a special kind of torture. Joel doesn't just miss his brother. He feels his absence like a phantom limb, an itch he can't scratch, a voice he expects to hear that never comes. Birthdays are the worst. Every August 3rd, Nora bakes a cake. 2 names written in frosting, Jace and Joel. 2 sets of candles, 1 boy to blow them out. Make a wish for both of you, she tells him every year. Joel wishes for the same thing each time. Bring him back. Please just bring him back. The wish never comes true. School is its own nightmare. Teachers who don't know how to talk to him, classmates who whisper when he walks by, guidance counselors who pull him aside with their sad eyes and careful questions. How are you doing, Joel? Do you want to talk about your brother? It's okay to feel angry. But Joel isn't angry, not yet. He's just empty, like someone scooped out the part of him that knew how to be happy and left a hollow space where his twin used to be. He stops making friends, stops joining sports teams, stops doing anything that might require him to explain why there's a J-shaped hole in every story about his childhood. I had a brother becomes past tense. I have a brother feels like a lie. So he just stops talking about it altogether. At home, the war room expands. Arthur's obsession grows. By the time Joel is 12, he's learned to navigate around cardboard boxes filled with case files, to step over evidence bags his grandfather obtained through channels Joel doesn't ask about, to ignore the conspiracy theories scrawled on whiteboards at 3 a.m. Your grandfather is just trying to help, Nora says. But her voice is hollow. She's stopped setting Jace's place at the table, stopped pretending he might walk through the door. She's given up. Arthur hasn't. And Joel is watching. He starts reading the files when Arthur isn't looking. Police reports written in cold clinical language, witness statements that lead nowhere. Crime scene photos he's too young to see but can't look away from. He learns the vocabulary of violence, of predation, of systemic incompetence. He learns that his brother wasn't taken by a monster in the dark. He was taken by a failure of imagination, by detectives who looked for the obvious and missed the invisible, by a system that prioritized convenience over truth. By 2003, Joel is 19. High school is over. His mother wants him to go to college, study something practical, build a normal life. But Joel has realized something Arthur figured out years ago. Normal life ended on July 14, 1992. You can't go back to normal when normal was built on a lie, on the assumption that the world is safe, that systems work, that justice happens automatically. I'm studying criminal justice, Joel tells his mother. She looks at him with eyes that have cried themselves dry. Joel, baby, you don't have to. Yes, I do. Because someone has to. Someone has to fix what broke. Someone has to make sure this never happens to another family. Someone has to find out what happened to Jace. And if the police won't do it, then Joel will. The day he enrolls at the University of North Texas, Arthur pulls him aside, hands him a key to the war room. I'm getting old, Arthur says quietly. His hands shake now, age and grief compounding. Someday this is going to be your fight. Joel takes the key. He doesn't know it yet, but he's just inherited a 30-year mission, one that will cost him everything, and one that will finally bring the truth into the light. Then in 2008, everything changes. Nora dies on a Tuesday, the same day of the week Jace disappeared. Heart failure, the doctors say, but Joel knows better. You can't live with that much grief pressing down on your chest and expect your heart to keep working forever. She dies waiting for answers that never came, waiting for closure that the system refused to provide, waiting for her grandson to come home. At the funeral, Joel stands between his mother and grandfather, staring at the casket, and feels something shift inside him. Not sadness, not anymore. Rage. Pure, focused, clarifying rage at a world that let this happen. At a system that moved on while his family drowned. At every detective who shrugged and filed the case away. At every bureaucrat who prioritized paperwork over people. Arthur leans on his cane, tears streaming down his weathered face. She never stopped believing, he whispers. Even at the end, she thought maybe... He can't finish the sentence. Joel can. She thought maybe Jace would come home before she died. But he didn't. And now she's gone. And the man who took Jace is still out there, breathing free air, living a life he stole from a child. Have you ever lost someone because a system failed them? Have you ever watched a family member die waiting for justice that never came? Drop a comment below, because this story isn't just about Joel. It's about every family the system has abandoned. That night, Joel goes to the war room. He sits in Arthur's chair, surrounded by decades of dead ends and false leads, and makes a promise. I will find him, whatever it takes, however long it takes. I will find the man who did this, and I will make sure he answers for it. The promise feels impossible. The case is 16 years cold. The trail has been dead for longer than Joel has been alive. But somewhere in this room, in these boxes, in these files, Arthur has compiled with obsessive precision, there's an answer. There has to be. And Joel is going to find it. March 2015, 2:47 a.m. Joel's phone rings. Hospice nurse. The voice is gentle but firm. You should come now. He makes the drive in 18 minutes, runs every red light, parks crooked across 2 spaces, doesn't care. Arthur is awake when Joel enters the room, barely. His breathing is shallow, rattling. The morphine drip should have knocked him unconscious hours ago, but he's fighting it, holding on, waiting. Grandpa, I'm here. Arthur's eyes flutter open. He reaches for Joel's hand. His grip is weak, but desperate. Box, Arthur whispers. Under the bed. Red one. Joel drops to his knees, pulls out a red banker's box he's never seen before, opens it. Inside, a single manila folder. Worn edges. Coffee stains. Arthur's handwriting on the tab. Priority, never closed. Joel opens it. The first page is a list of names. 37 people who lived within a 2-mile radius of the house in 1992. Each name has notes beside it. Alibis, interview summaries, Arthur's assessment. Most are crossed out, but one name, halfway down page 2, is circled, not once, 3 times. Red ink so heavy it's bled through the paper. Sterling Vane Gable. Next to it, Arthur's shaky scrawl. Parks Dept, 1992. Why no background check? Disappeared after Jace. Where did he go? Joel's hands start shaking. You knew, he whispers. You knew his name. Arthur nods weakly. Told police, showed them. They said, no evidence. Said I was grasping. When? When did you tell them? 1995. Detective named Carver. He laughed at me. Arthur's breathing becomes labored. Said I was seeing monsters everywhere. Filed a complaint against me for harassment. Joel's blood runs cold. They threatened you? Said if I kept calling, they'd have me committed. Said grief was making me paranoid. Arthur's grip tightens, suddenly strong, urgent. But I wasn't wrong, was I? Look at the next page. Joel turns the page. Newspaper clipping. 1991. Tarrant County. Small article buried on page 7. Local man sentenced in park incident. Sterling Gable. Unlawful restraint of a minor. 18 months. Joel's vision blurs. He had a record. They hired him anyway. They didn't know. I checked. Tarrant County. Never sent it to Dallas. Filing error. That's what the clerk told me in 96. You found this 20 years ago? Arthur nods. Tears streamed down his weathered face. Showed police. They said case was cold. Said even if Gable had a record, it doesn't prove he took Jace. Needed evidence, DNA, witnesses. So they did nothing. They did nothing. Arthur pulls Joel closer. His voice drops to barely a whisper. Promise me, you'll finish this. Grandpa, I'm dying tonight. I can feel it. And I can't die knowing he's still out there, that he's free, that he might do it again. Joel's throat tightens. I promise. Say his name. Say you'll find Sterling Gable. Say you'll make him pay. I'll find Sterling Gable, Joel repeats, his voice breaking. I'll make him pay for what he did to Jace, for what he did to us. I won't stop until he's in prison or in the ground. Arthur exhales slowly. The tension drains from his body. Good boy, he whispers. Your brother would be proud. His eyes close. The heart monitor flatlines at 3:23 a.m. Joel sits there holding his grandfather's hand, staring at the name circled in red ink. Sterling Vane Gable, the monster who stole his childhood, who killed his brother, who destroyed his family, the man the police dismissed as a figment of a grieving old man's imagination. Joel stands, wipes his eyes, picks up the red box, and walks out of that hospice room with a clarity he's never felt before. No more hoping the system will fix itself. No more waiting for detectives to care. No more trusting anyone except himself. 3 days after Arthur's funeral, Joel breaks into the Dallas Police Department's cold case storage facility. Not literally. He gets a job there. Clerk position, night shift, minimum wage, access to every unsolved case from the last 50 years. It takes him 6 months to find what he needs. But when he does, when he pulls Jace's case file and sees the interview logs and realizes Detective Carver never even contacted Tarrant County to verify Arthur's claims, Joel understands something fundamental. The system didn't just fail his family. It protected the man who destroyed them. And now Joel is going to burn that protection to the ground. The next 8 years of Joel's life can be summed up in one word: obsession. But it's not Arthur's chaotic, grief-fueled obsession. It's something colder, more calculated, more dangerous. Joel becomes a ghost. He quits his teaching job at the community college, stops returning calls from friends he barely had to begin with. His mother begs him to move on, to build a life, to stop letting Jace's disappearance consume him the way it consumed Arthur. You're killing yourself over this, she tells him. Good, Joel replies, because if I don't, no one else will. He transforms the war room into something Arthur never could have imagined. Computer monitors replace handwritten notes. Database subscriptions replace newspaper clippings. Joel teaches himself advanced search techniques, data mining, forensic analysis software that didn't exist when Jace disappeared. He becomes an expert in bureaucratic failure, studies how information falls through cracks, how counties fail to communicate, how filing errors compound into catastrophes, and he focuses every bit of that expertise on one name, Sterling Vane Gable. The more Joel digs, the angrier he becomes. Gable wasn't just missed by the original investigation. He was right there, living 4 miles from Arthur and Nora's house in 1992, working as a maintenance supervisor for Dallas County Parks and Recreation, access to families, access to children, access to trust, and a criminal history that should have disqualified him from ever working near kids. But here's the thing that makes Joel want to scream. In 1991, 1 year before Jace disappeared, Gable was convicted in Tarrant County of unlawful restraint of a minor, sentenced to 18 months, served 9, released on parole with restrictions that should have been tracked statewide, should have been, weren't, because a clerk in Tarrant County failed to enter the conviction into the Texas Crime Information Center database. A simple administrative error, a box not checked, a form not filed. And because Dallas County had no record of Gable's conviction, he passed a background check, got hired, got access, got Jace. Joel sits in the war room staring at the documentation and feels something break inside him, not his resolve, That's stronger than ever. His faith, his belief that the world operates on logic and justice and basic competence. Jace didn't die because of evil. He died because someone didn't do their paperwork. The thought is so absurd, so mundane, so bureaucratically banal that Joel laughs. And then he can't stop laughing. And then he's not laughing anymore. He's crying, sobbing, pounding his fists on the desk until his knuckles bleed. When the storm passes, Joel makes a decision. He's not going to let this go. He's not going to accept that the system failed and there's nothing to be done about it. He's going to force their hand. By 2020, Joel has built an airtight case. He knows where Gable lives, knows his routines, knows his employment history, knows every gap in the original investigation that allowed him to slip through. But he also knows that cold cases don't get reopened because someone asks nicely. They get reopened because of pressure, public pressure, media pressure, the kind of pressure that makes departments look bad if they ignore it. Joel starts small, creates a website, Justice for Jace Mitchell, posts everything he's found, the filing error, the background check failure, the proximity of Gable's home to the crime scene. Then he goes bigger, contacts investigative journalists, crime podcasters, anyone with a platform and an audience. He pitches the story the same way every time. A child was taken because the system failed. The man who took him is still free, and I have proof. Most ignore him. Cold cases are a dime a dozen. Everyone thinks their tragedy deserves attention. But in 2021, a true crime podcast called Unresolved picks up the story. The episode goes viral, 2 million downloads in the first week. Social media explodes after Justice for Jace starts trending in Texas. And suddenly, Dallas Police Department has a problem. Because Joel hasn't just presented evidence, he's presented a narrative of incompetence so egregious that ignoring it would be a PR disaster. In August 2022, 30 years and 1 month after Jace disappeared, Detective Raymond Torres calls Joel. "We're reopening the case," Torres says, "and we'd like your cooperation." Joel closes his eyes, feels the weight of 3 decades pressing down on him. "What changed?" he asks, even though he knows the answer. "New forensic technology, DNA analysis that wasn't available in 1992. If we can get a sample from Gable—" "He's already in the system," Joel interrupts. "He got a DUI in 2018. They took DNA. It's sitting in the database right now." Silence on the other end. "You're telling me," Torres says slowly, "that we could have matched him years ago?" "I'm telling you," Joel replies, "that my brother would be alive if anyone had done their job correctly, whoever, at any point in the last 30 years. More silence. Then, "Give us 6 months. We'll build a case that sticks." Joel hangs up. 6 months. After 30 years, what's 6 more months? But here's what Joel doesn't know yet, what no one knows yet. When they arrest Sterling Gable, when they search his house, when they open that basement door, they're going to find something that proves Jace wasn't the first, or the last. They're going to find evidence of a predator who operated freely for decades, not because he was clever, not because he was careful, but because the system designed to stop him was too broken to function. What would you do if you discovered the system failed someone you loved? Would you fight for 30 years like Joel, or would you give up when everyone else did? Comment below. I need to know. And if you're not subscribed yet, here's why you should be. Stories like this don't just entertain. They expose the cracks people fall through. Subscribe so you never miss the truth. Because the truth is the only weapon we have against a system that fails us. September 2022. Joel sits in the basement of the Tarrant County Courthouse, surrounded by boxes that smell like mold and bureaucratic neglect. Dang An records from 1989 to 1992. Paper files that were supposed to be digitized a decade ago, but never were because of budget cuts. Welcome to how the system loses children. The clerk who let him down here is 63 and counting down to a retirement. She didn't ask why Joel wanted files from 30 years ago, didn't care. Just handed him a visitor badge and pointed to the stairs. "Lock up when you're done," she said. "I'm going to lunch." Joel has been here for 6 hours. His back aches. His eyes burn from reading faded typewriter text under fluorescent lights that flicker like they're trying to give him a migraine. But he can't stop. Because Arthur was right. Sterling Vane Gable exists, and his criminal history is a roadmap of failures that should terrify anyone who believes the system works. Joel pulls another file from the box. Case number 91CR4477. State of Texas versus Sterling Vane Gable. The charge, unlawful restraint of a minor. The victim, a 9-year-old girl at a park where Gable worked maintenance. The details make Joel's stomach turn. Gable lured her to a storage shed, told her he needed help finding a lost dog, locked the door behind them. What happened next is documented in clinical language that somehow makes it worse. A jogger heard screaming, called police. The girl was found 40 minutes later, traumatized, but physically unharmed. Gable was arrested on scene. The case should have been a career ender, a life ender, the kind of conviction that gets you registered, monitored, barred from ever being near children again. Instead, Gable pleaded down to a lesser charge. Got 18 months. Served 9. Released in May 1991 with parole conditions that required him to stay away from parks, schools, and public areas where children congregate. 14 months later, Jace Mitchell disappeared from his grandparents' backyard. Joel reads the sentencing document 3 times, looking for the part where this information was entered into the statewide database. The part where Dallas County would have been notified that a convicted predator was living in their jurisdiction. The part where any of this mattered. He can't find it. Because it doesn't exist. He pulls out his phone, calls Detective Torres. "I found it," Joel says when Torres answers. "The conviction, 1991, Tarrant County, unlawful restraint of a minor." And it was never entered into TCIC. Dallas had no idea Gable existed. When he applied for the parks job in 1992, the background check came back clean. Silence on the line. "You're telling me," Torres says carefully, "that we hired a child predator because Tarrant County didn't file paperwork?" "That's exactly what I'm telling you." Jesus Christ. Joel keeps reading, finds the probation officer's notes. Gable was supposed to check in monthly, did so for the first 6 months, then stopped. No one followed up. The case was closed administratively in 1993 with a note, subject non-compliant, warrant issued, unable to locate, unable to locate. Gable was 4 miles from Arthur and Nora's house, working for the county, filing taxes, living openly under his own name. But the system marked him as unable to locate, and moved on. Joel takes a photo of every page, the conviction, the sentencing, the probation notes, the administrative closure, every single piece of evidence that proves this didn't have to happen. Then he finds something else, a handwritten note clipped to the inside of the file folder, dated March 1991, written by someone whose signature is illegible. Recommend entry into TCIC database. Subject shows pattern behavior and high risk of reoffense. Someone knew. Someone recognized the danger. Someone tried to sound the alarm, and someone else ignored it. Joel photographs the note, adds it to the growing collection of evidence that the system didn't just fail Jace, it killed him. When Joel walks out of the courthouse, the sun is setting. He's been in that basement for 9 hours. He hasn't eaten, hasn't checked his phone, hasn't thought about anything except the paper trail that proves his brother's death was preventable. He sits in his car and calls Torres again. "We need to talk about Sterling Gable," Joel says. "Not just what he did, what he's been doing since." "What do you mean?" "I mean, a man like this doesn't stop. Not after 9 months in jail, not after 30 years. Men like Gable don't retire. They evolve." "You think there are other victims?" "I don't think. I know. And when you arrest him, when you search his property, you're going to find proof." Torres is quiet for a long moment. "Joel, I need you to understand something. Building a case this old is nearly impossible. The evidence from 1992 is degraded. Witnesses are dead or unreliable. Even if we can place Gable near your grandparents' house, proving he took Jace is... His DNA is in the system, Joel interrupts, from the 2018 DUI arrest. You have evidence from the crime scene. Test it. We did, this morning. Joel's heart stops. And? Partial match to DNA found on the back gate at your grandparents' house. Not enough for a conviction on its own, but enough to justify a search warrant. Then what are you waiting for? Logistics. We're coordinating with the DA's office, making sure everything is airtight. A man walks on a technicality once, it's a tragedy. Twice, it's our fault. Joel grips the steering wheel until his knuckles go white. How long? 2 weeks, maybe 3. He's been free for 31 years. What's 3 more weeks? But Joel knows what 3 weeks means. 3 weeks for Gable to notice the attention. 3 weeks to destroy evidence. 3 weeks to disappear like he did in 1993. 3 weeks for the system to fail again. Don't let him run, Joel says. Please, whatever you do, don't let him run. We won't, Torres promises. I give you my word. Joel hangs up. He doesn't trust the word of a detective. Doesn't trust the system that's failed him at every turn. But he's out of options. All he can do now is wait and hope that this time, just this once, the system gets it right. Sterling Vane Gable was born in 1949 in Amarillo, Texas. Unremarkable childhood. Average student. Joined the Navy at 19, served 4 years, honorable discharge. Worked a series of maintenance jobs across Texas through the 1970s and 80s. Married briefly in 1976. Divorced 2 years later, no children. On paper, he's boring, forgettable. The kind of person who blends into the background of any community, which is exactly what makes him dangerous. Joel spends the next week building a profile. Not the clinical, academic kind they taught him in graduate school. This is personal, visceral. He needs to understand the man who destroyed his family. Gable's employment history is revealing. He gravitates toward jobs that provide access: school custodian, park maintenance, youth sports league groundskeeper. Always around children, always in positions of minor authority that parents don't question. After all, who suspects the janitor? Who worries about the man mowing the Little League field? In 1989, Gable worked at Riverside Park in Fort Worth. That's where he grabbed the 9-year-old girl, where his pattern first became visible to law enforcement. But Joel digs deeper and finds something chilling. 2 other complaints filed against Gable in 1987 and 1988. Not criminal charges, just incident reports from concerned parents. A man watching children too closely. Maintenance worker made my daughter uncomfortable. Both reports were filed. Both were investigated briefly. Both concluded with the same assessment. No evidence of criminal behavior. Subject cooperative and polite. Cooperative and polite. 2 years later, he locked a child in a storage shed. After his release in 1991, Gable moved to Dallas. Got hired by Dallas County Parks and Recreation in February 1992. 5 months later, Jace disappeared. Then Gable vanished from the employment records. No forwarding address filed with HR. No exit interview, just stopped showing up in June 1992 and was marked as abandoned position. Joel tracks him through property records. Gable bought a house in East Dallas in 1993. Small, single story. Unremarkable. Except for one detail, it's 3.2 miles from Arthur and Nora's home. Close enough to know the neighborhood. Far enough to avoid suspicion. Gable lived there quietly for 30 years. Paid his taxes. Kept his lawn trimmed. Attended the Methodist Church on Sundays. Volunteered for the Neighborhood Watch program in the 2000s, the Neighborhood Watch. The program designed to keep communities safe from people exactly like him. Joel finds a photo from a 2015 community newsletter. Gable standing with other volunteers, holding a safety first sign. He's smiling, grandfatherly, trustworthy. Joel stares at the photo and feels rage boil in his chest. This man took my brother, and everyone thanked him for keeping the neighborhood safe. He digs into Gable's recent years. The 2018 DUI was his only arrest since 1991. Minor incident. Blew a Z9 at a traffic stop. Pleaded guilty. Paid a fine. DNA sample taken as standard procedure for all arrests in Texas post-2005. That DNA sample is what will destroy him. But Joel wants more than DNA evidence. He wants to understand the scope of what Gable has done. Needs to know if Jace was an isolated incident or part of something larger. He pulls missing children reports from Dallas County, 1992 to present. Focuses on cases that match Gable's pattern. Children between ages 7 and 12 taken from residential areas, no witnesses, cases that went cold quickly. He finds 4 cases that fit. 1994, 7-year-old boy, disappeared from his backyard, never found. 1998, 10-year-old girl, vanished walking home from school, never found. 2003, 9-year-old boy, last seen playing in a park, never found. 2011, 8-year-old girl, disappeared during a community festival, never found. 4 children, 4 families destroyed, 4 cases filed away as unsolved. Joel maps the locations. Every single disappearance happened within a 5-mile radius of Gable's house. Every single one occurred during a year when Gable had no documented employment, times when he would have been free to watch, to plan, to strike. The pattern is undeniable, but patterns aren't proof, not in court, not when you're trying to convict a man for crimes committed decades ago. Joel needs physical evidence, needs something that directly ties Gable to these children, and he's betting everything that Torres and his team will find it when they execute the search warrant. Because men like Gable don't just kill and forget. They keep trophies, they keep memories, they keep proof of what they've done, hidden in places they think no one will ever look. Joel thinks about that basement door in the arrest report, the one with industrial locks, the one Gable protected like it contained something precious. And he knows with absolute certainty whatever is behind that door will answer every question that's haunted his family for 3 decades. The question is whether he's ready for those answers, whether anyone is. October 2022, 9:13 a.m. Joel stands in the lobby of the Tarrant County Courthouse with a box of documents and a rage he can barely contain. The clerk behind the plexiglass looks bored. 60s, reading glasses on a chain, drinking coffee from a mug that says, "World's okayest employee." I need to speak to whoever handles TCIC database submissions from 1991, Joel says. She doesn't look up. Records department, 3rd floor. I've been to records, they sent me here. Then you need a T. It sent me to you. She finally makes eye contact, sighs like he's ruining her morning. What's this regarding? A filing error that let a child predator walk free for 30 years? That gets her attention. 10 minutes later, Joel is sitting across from Martin Herrera, Deputy Clerk of Criminal Records. 52. Tired eyes. The look of a man who'd seen budget cuts gut his department and knows things are held together with duct tape and prayer. Joel slides the conviction record across the desk. Sterling Vane Gable, convicted March 1991, unlawful restraint of a minor, sentenced to 18 months. Herrera scans it. Okay, and? It was never entered into TCIC. How do you know? Because Dallas County hired him a year later to work around children. Their background check came back clean. Herrera's expression shifts. He opens his computer. Types, waits, types again. You're right, he says quietly. It's in our local system, but there's no TCIC submission record. Why not? I can't say. This was before digital integration. Everything was manual back then. Someone had to submit it. That's the law. Yes. So, who didn't do their job? Herrera removes his glasses, rubs his eyes. Mr. Mitchell, it is Mitchell, right? Your brother? Joel nods. I'm sorry for what happened to your family, truly. But you're asking me to assign blame for a clerical error from 31 years ago. The person responsible could be dead, retired, could have been following procedures that were broken to begin with. I don't care about blame, Joel lies. I care about why it happened. Herrera pulls up a different screen. In 1991, we were processing about 200 criminal cases a month with a staff of 4 clerks. The state database had technical problems constantly. Submissions would time out, error messages. Sometimes we'd submit something 3 times, and it still wouldn't go through. So you just gave up. So we did the best we could with the resources we had. Herrera's voice hardens. You want to be angry at someone? Be angry at the legislature that cut our budget every year. Be angry at the voters who demanded lower taxes and fewer government employees. Be angry at a system that expects perfection from people who are overworked and underpaid. A child is dead because someone didn't follow up. I know, and I hate that, but yelling at me won't change it. Silence hangs between them. Joel takes a breath, tries a different approach. The probation violation, 1993. Gable stopped reporting. You issued a warrant. Let me check. Herrera types, waits. Yeah. Bench warrant issued August 93. Still active. Still active? He's been living in Dallas for 30 years? The warrant is in our system. If he'd been arrested in Tarrant County, we'd have grabbed him. But Dallas wouldn't know to look unless they ran his name through the warrant database, which they would have done if you'd entered the original conviction. Herrera closes his eyes. Yes. So one error created a cascade. He got hired, took my brother, violated probation, and no one connected the dots because the dots were in different counties. That's an accurate assessment. Joel leans forward. How many other cases like this exist? How many predators are walking free because counties don't talk to each other? I don't know. Guess? I can't. Guess? Herrera is quiet for a long moment. Then, dozens, maybe hundreds. Texas has 254 counties. We don't have integrated systems. We barely have functional communication. If someone moves counties, violates parole, changes their name slightly, they can disappear into the gaps. Joel pulls out his phone, starts recording. Say that again. I can't. This isn't official. Dozens or hundreds of predators could be exploiting the system because counties don't communicate. Say it on record. Herrera stares at the phone, then at Joel. Something shifts in his expression. Maybe guilt, maybe exhaustion. Maybe the realization that silence makes him complicit. It's possible, he says carefully, that individuals with criminal histories in one county could evade detection in another due to lack of database integration. And children are paying the price. Yes, children are paying the price. Joel stops recording. Sterling Gable is being investigated by Dallas PD right now. When they arrest him, I'm going public with all of this. Every failure, every gap, every budget cut that prioritized money over children. Good, Herrera says quietly. Maybe then someone will finally listen. Joel walks out of the courthouse into blinding sunlight. His phone rings. Torres. We got the warrant approved, the detective says. We're executing it tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Joel's heart pounds. You're sure he won't run? We've had eyes on his house for 3 days. He's not going anywhere. What if he is? What if he's already destroying evidence? Then we'll find what's left. Joel, I need you to trust me on this. Trust. The word tastes like poison. I'll be there, Joel says. No, you won't. This is an active investigation. Civilians can't. I'll be across the street, watching. You can't stop me from standing on public property. Torres sighs. Fine, but stay back. Let us do our job. Joel hangs up. He gets in his car, drives straight to Gable's neighborhood, parks 3 blocks away where he can see the house. Single story, beige siding, neat lawn, American flag on the porch. The most dangerous monsters don't look like monsters. They look like neighbors. Joel watches the house until sunset, until the lights go on inside, until he sees Gable's silhouette moving past the window. An old man, living quietly, probably watching TV, maybe reading, maybe sleeping soundly because he thinks he's gotten away with it. But tomorrow morning, that door is coming down. Tomorrow morning, 31 years of freedom end. Tomorrow morning, Joel finally gets to look the man who destroyed his family in the eyes. And the only question left is, what will they find in that basement? November 2022. Torres calls Joel at 11 p.m. on a Wednesday. We have a problem. Joel sits up in bed, instantly awake. What kind of problem? Gable's lawyer is fighting the warrant. Claims we don't have probable cause. Says the DNA from the gate is too degraded to be reliable. Judge is reviewing. When will we know? Could be days, could be weeks. He's going to run. He doesn't know we're coming. You don't know that, Joel snaps. What if someone tipped him off? What if he's watching the news? What if right now, while we're talking, he's loading a van and disappearing into Mexico? Joel, I need you to calm down. Don't tell me to calm down. You have one shot at this. One. If he runs, if he destroys evidence, if this falls apart because you waited for a judge to initial the right form, I know what's at stake. Silence. Torres exhales slowly. Look, I get it. I have kids. If someone took them, if the system failed me, the way it failed you, I'd burn the world down. But I have to do this right. If we rush, if we make one mistake, his lawyer will shred us in court, and Gable walks. Again. Joel closes his eyes, forces himself to think clearly. What do you need? More evidence, something concrete that ties him to Jace. Not circumstantial, not proximity, something a jury can't ignore. I've given you everything I have. Then find something I don't have. Joel spends the next 72 hours doing exactly that. He goes back to the neighborhood where Jace disappeared, knocks on doors. Most of the families from 1992 are gone, moved away, died, couldn't bear to stay in a place haunted by tragedy. But 3 houses still have original residents. Mrs. Chen, now 81, remembers the day Jace vanished. Police came, asked questions. We told them everything we knew. Did you see anyone suspicious that day? Anyone who didn't belong? She hesitates. There was a county truck parked on the street. I remember because it was there for hours, just sitting. Joel's pulse quickens. What kind of truck? Parks Department, green and white. I thought maybe they were trimming trees, but no one ever got out. Did you tell the police? I mentioned it. They wrote it down. Never heard anything after. Joel pulls up a photo of Gable on his phone, zooms in, shows her. This man, could he have been in that truck? Mrs. Chen squints at the screen, then her face goes pale. I know him. From 1992? No, from now. He volunteers at the church, always very polite, brings donuts to the parish council meetings. Joel feels ice in his veins. Which church? First Methodist, 3 blocks from here. The same church where Jace's memorial service was held in 1992. Gable attended the vigil for the child he killed. Joel drives to the church, finds the parish administrator, asks about Gable. Sterling, oh, he's wonderful. Been volunteering here for, goodness, must be 15 years now. Helps with the youth group sometimes. Youth group? Does he have access to the building? Well, yes. All our volunteers do. We trust our congregation. I need to see your volunteer records, background checks, applications. The administrator's smile fades. I'm sorry, but that information is confidential. Joel leans across the desk. Sterling Gable is under investigation for child abduction and murder. If he had access to children through this church, you need to cooperate. Now. Her face drains of color. She pulls the file. Gable's volunteer application from 2007. Background check. Clean. References. Glowing. Hours logged. Over 2,000. 2,000 hours around children. Joel photographs every page. Then he sees it. At the bottom of the application, emergency contact. A name Joel doesn't recognize. Margaret Vane. Same last name as Gable's middle name. He Googles her. Obituary from 2006. Margaret Vane Gable. Beloved mother, survived by her son, Sterling. Joel clicks on the funeral home link, finds the guest book, scrolls through condolences, and there are 3 entries down, a comment from July 2006. "So sorry for your loss, Sterling. Your mother was a kind woman. She would be proud of the man you've become." The Mitchell family. Joel reads it 3 times. Someone from his family signed Gable's mother's online condolence book. He calls his mother. "Did you know Sterling Gable?" Long pause. "Who?" "Sterling Gable. Did you ever meet him? Ever sign a condolence book for his mother?" "Joel, I sign a lot of condolence books. I'm a hospice nurse. Why?" "Mom, think. 2006, Margaret Gable. Does that name mean anything to you?" Another pause, then, Oh, God, yes, she was a patient. I took care of her for 3 weeks before she passed. Her son was very attentive, very devoted." Joel can barely breathe. "Did you tell him about Jace?" "I might have." "We talked a lot during those late shifts. He asked about my family. I told him about losing my son, about how the case was never solved." "Did you tell him where it happened, where Mom and Dad lived?" "I don't remember, maybe." "Joel, what is this about?" "Gable killed Jace, and in 2006 you told him everything he needed to know to follow our family, to watch us, to make sure he'd never been connected." His mother starts crying. No, I didn't. I couldn't have." "It's not your fault," Joel says, even though part of him wants to scream. "You didn't know, but I need you to write down everything you remember about him, every conversation, every detail." He hangs up, calls Torres. "I have something." "Gable knew my family personally, had access to information about the case, and he's been volunteering around children for 15 years. Send me everything." Joel does. 2 days later, the judge approves the warrant. Execution date, May 18th, 2023. 6:47 a.m. And Joel will be there to watch Sterling Gable's world collapse. May 18th, 2023. 6:47 a.m. Joel stands across the street, coffee cup trembling in his hands. He hasn't slept, hasn't eaten. For the past 4 hours he's been parked here, watching Gable's house, terrified the old man would somehow sense what was coming and disappear into the pre-dawn darkness. But the house stayed quiet, lights off until 6:15 a.m. Then the kitchen light flickered on. Routine, predictable. Gable has no idea his freedom ends this morning. Torres and his team move with precision. No sirens, no announcement. Just the quiet, controlled approach of law enforcement that's done this 1,000 times. 6 officers, 2 detectives. A forensic team waiting in a van around the corner. Torres reaches the door first, knocks 3 sharp raps. Joel holds his breath. The door opens. Sterling Gable stands there in a bathrobe, coffee mug in hand, looking mildly annoyed at the early morning disruption. He's smaller than Joel imagined, thinner, older, the kind of man you'd see at the grocery store and forget 5 minutes later. Unremarkable. That's what makes him terrifying. "Can I help you, officers?" Gable's voice is polite, almost grandfatherly. Torres holds up the warrant. "Sterling Vane Gable, we have a warrant to search this property in connection with the 1992 disappearance of Jace Mitchell." Something flickers across Gable's face. Not panic, not fear, recognition, as if he's been expecting this, as if some part of him has been waiting 31 years for someone to finally connect the pieces. "I'd like to call my lawyer," Gable says calmly. "You're welcome to do that after we bring you in for questioning." Torres nods to the officers. They move past Gable into the house. He doesn't resist, doesn't protest, just stands there, watching them enter with an expression that chills Joel to the bone. Satisfaction. Like this is exactly what he wanted. Across the street, Joel's hands clench into fists. 31 years. 31 years this man has been free. Breathing, living, while Jace's bones lie somewhere unknown. An officer appears in the doorway. "Detective, you need to see this." Torres follows him inside. Joel can't hear what's being said, can only watch shadows moving past windows, can only imagine what they're finding. 5 minutes pass, then 10, Then Torres emerges, face pale, and walks directly to the van. He's on the radio immediately, voice urgent but controlled. Joel can't make out the words, but he recognizes the tone. They found something bad. Torres crosses the street, approaches Joel's car, taps on the window. Joel rolls it down. "You need to leave," Torres says quietly. "What did you find?" "Joel, go home." "Tell me what you found." Torres looks back at the house. When he turns to Joel again, his eyes are haunted. "We found a locked basement, industrial deadbolt, padlock, the kind of security you use when you're hiding something you never want discovered." "And?" "We're getting bolt cutters, but Joel, there are items visible through the door gap, children's belongings, shoes, backpacks, things that don't belong to a 74-year-old man living alone." The world tilts. Joel grips the steering wheel to steady himself. "How many?" "I don't know yet, but more than one." "Jace?" "I don't know. We haven't opened it fully, but when we do—" Torres pauses. "This is going to be worse than we thought. Much worse." Joel stares at the house, at the neat lawn, the American flag, the mailbox with faded numbers, a horror show hidden behind suburban normalcy. "I want to know," Joel says. "Everything you find. I want to know. The DA will—" "I don't care about legal protocol. My brother's in that basement. I need to know." Torres is quiet for a long moment. Then he nods. "I'll tell you what I can. But Joel, prepare yourself. What we find might not give you closure. It might just give you nightmares." "I've had nightmares for 31 years, Joel replies. "At least now they'll have answers." Torres walks back to the house. Joel sits in his car, watching, waiting, as the forensic team arrives and disappears inside. And he thinks about Jace, about the 8-year-old boy who loved climbing trees and stealing cookies and turning ordinary days into adventures. The brother who never got to grow up, never got to fall in love or have children or complain about getting old. The brother whose entire future was stolen by a man who looked like everyone's harmless grandfather. Joel's phone buzzes. A text from Torres. "We're opening the basement now." Joel closes his eyes and waits for the truth he's spent half his life searching for. The bolt cutters make a sharp crack when they cut through the padlock. The basement door swings open, and what's inside makes 2 veteran officers turn away and vomit in the yard. Torres forces himself to look, to document, to bear witness to 30 years of evil hidden in plain sight. The basement isn't large, maybe 12 by 15 feet, concrete walls. Single bare bulb hanging from the ceiling, no windows. The air is stale, thick with the smell of mildew and something else, something chemical. Bleach, maybe. Cleaning solution used to scrub away evidence. But Gable couldn't scrub away everything. The walls are lined with shelves, plastic storage bins labeled with dates. Not names, just dates. As if the children inside were inventory, products, things to be cataloged and organized. Torres opens the first bin. His hands shake. Inside, a child's sneaker, size 2, pink with purple laces, a Hello Kitty backpack, a hairbrush with strands of blonde hair still tangled in the bristles. He opens the second bin. A boy's baseball glove, grass-stained, well-loved. A school ID card for a child who would be 41 years old now if he'd lived. The third bin contains a Star Wars t-shirt, size 8. Faded. The same shirt Joel described Jace wearing the night he disappeared. Torres pulls out his phone with trembling hands, takes photos, documents everything with clinical precision. Even though his stomach is churning, there are 9 bins total, 9 children, 9 families who never knew what happened to their babies. But the bins aren't the worst part. In the corner of the basement, there's a video camera on a tripod, old, the kind that used VHS tapes, and beside it, a box filled with cassettes, each one labeled with a date. Torres doesn't watch them, can't, won't. That's for the forensic team, for the prosecutors who will need to prove what Gable did, but he knows what's on those tapes. He knows because men like Gable don't just kill, they collect, they preserve. They return to their crimes again and again, reliving the moments when they had complete power over another human being. An evidence technician catalogs each item, photographs, bags, tags. The process is methodical, respectful. These aren't just objects anymore. They're the last physical traces of children who deserve to grow up. Torres finds what he's been dreading in the fifth bin. A child's wallet, worn leather. Inside a school ID card for Jace Mitchell. 3rd grade. Arthur and Nora's phone number written in marker on the back. Torres closes his eyes. 31 years. 31 years this wallet has been in this basement while a family tore itself apart searching for answers. He bags the evidence, climbs the stairs, steps out into the morning sunlight that feels obscene after what he's just witnessed. Gable sits in the back of a patrol car, hands cuffed, face expressionless. He's watching the forensic team carry evidence boxes out of his house, watching his carefully curated collection being dismantled. And he's smiling. Not broadly, just a slight upturn at the corner of his mouth. As if this is all part of some private joke, only he understands. Torres walks over to the car, leans down, looks Gable in the eyes. 9 children, Torres says quietly. You took 9 children. Gable says nothing. You're going to spend the rest of your life in prison. You know that, right? Still nothing? Was it worth it? 30 years of freedom. Was it worth what's coming next? And finally Gable speaks. His voice is soft, almost conversational. I always knew someone would figure it out eventually. I'm actually relieved. Carrying secrets gets exhausting after a while. Torres's hand tightens on his notepad. You could have stopped. Any time in the last 30 years, you could have stopped. Could have, Gable agrees. Didn't want to? No remorse, no shame, no humanity. Just a monster wearing a human face. Torres straightens, walks back to his team, radios for additional units. Because what they've found in this basement isn't just evidence of Jace Mitchell's murder, it's evidence of a serial predator who operated freely in one of America's largest cities for 3 decades, not because he was clever, not because he was careful, but because the system designed to stop him was too broken to function. Across the street, Joel sees Torres emerge from the house, sees the look on his face, and knows with absolute certainty that his brother is dead. Has been dead since the day he disappeared. All these years of hoping, of imagining scenarios where Jace was still alive somewhere, where he'd been taken but not hurt, where maybe, somehow, there could still be a happy ending. All of it was fantasy. The truth is in that basement, and the truth is worse than Joel ever imagined. Torres crosses the street at 11:47 a.m. Joel has been sitting in his car for 5 hours, watching evidence boxes carried out, watching the medical examiner's van arrive, watching his entire childhood reduced to case numbers and evidence tags. Torres opens the passenger door, slides in without asking permission. For a long moment, neither man speaks. We found him, Torres finally says. We found Jace. Joel's hands grip the steering wheel. Where? The basement. There are remains. We'll need dental records to confirm, but the clothing matches what you described. The wallet we found. The door to the processing area opens. 2 officers escort Gable through the lobby. He's in an orange jumpsuit now, hands cuffed, ankles shackled, moving slowly like the elderly man he is. Joel stands. Gable sees him. Their eyes meet, and Joel sees nothing. No recognition, no shame, no acknowledgement of the decades of suffering he's caused. Just mild curiosity, like Joel is an interesting specimen, a puzzle to be examined. Joel takes a step forward. The officers tense, hands moving toward their weapons. But Joel doesn't move closer, just stands there, staring at the man who killed his brother. Why? The word comes out broken, raw. Gable tilts his head, studies Joel like a scientist studying an insect. You're the twin, Gable says. His voice is soft, conversational. Jace talked about you. Joel's blood turns to ice. He said you were the smart one, the careful one. He said, don't. Joel's voice shakes. Don't you dare say his name. Gable smiles, not cruelly, almost kindly, which makes it so much worse. He reminded me of my nephew. Same energy, same fearlessness. That's why I chose him. The officers pull Gable toward the door. He doesn't resist. Just keeps looking at Joel with those empty, curious eyes. "I'm sorry for your loss," Gable says as they lead him away, as if he's offering condolences at a funeral, as if he wasn't the reason for the loss, as if 31 years of grief and destruction were just an unfortunate accident. Joel stands in the empty lobby, shaking, unable to process what just happened. Torres appears beside him. "You okay?" Joel shakes his head. He's not human. That's not a person. That's something else. Something broken that looks like a person. "I know." How does someone become that? I don't know, and honestly, I don't care. My job is to stop them. Understanding them is above my pay grade. Joel watches the door where Gable disappeared. He said Jace talked about me. That means Jace was conscious, aware. He knew what was happening to him. Joel, he died terrified and alone, and he knew I wasn't coming to save him. Torres puts a hand on Joel's shoulder. "Jace knew you loved him. That's what matters, not those last hours, the 8 years before them. The brother who fought for him for 3 decades after, that's what defines your relationship, not what Gable did." Joel wants to believe that, but all he can hear is Gable's voice. He talked about you. All he can see is 8-year-old Jace calling for a brother who never came. All he can feel is the crushing weight of 31 years of guilt that he survived and Jace did not. "I need to tell my mother," Joel says quietly. "She needs to hear it from me before it's on the news. We can have a victim advocate." "No, it has to be me. Because some things can't be outsourced to professionals. Some conversations have to happen between family members, no matter how much they destroy you." Joel walks out of the police station into the evening heat and prepares to break his mother's heart one final time. The bolt cutters make a sharp crack when they cut through the padlock. The basement door swings open, and what's inside makes 2 veteran officers turn away and vomit in the yard. Torres forces himself to look, to document, to bear witness to 30 years of evil hidden in plain sight. The basement isn't large, maybe 12 by 15 feet, concrete walls, single bare bulb hanging from the ceiling, no windows. The air is stale, thick with the smell of mildew and something else, something chemical, bleach, maybe, cleaning solution used to scrub away evidence. But Gable couldn't scrub away everything. The walls are lined with shelves, plastic storage bins labeled with dates. Not names, just dates, as if the children inside were inventory, products, things to be cataloged and organized. Torres opens the first bin. His hands shake. Inside, a child's sneaker, size 2, pink with purple laces, a Hello Kitty backpack, a hairbrush with strands of blonde hair still tangled in the bristles. He opens the second bin. A boy's baseball glove, grass-stained, well-loved. A school ID card for a child who would be 41 years old now if he'd lived. The third bin contains a Star Wars T-shirt, size 8. Faded, the same shirt Joel described Jace wearing the night he disappeared. Torres pulls out his phone with trembling hands, takes photos, documents everything with clinical precision, even though his stomach is churning. There are 9 bins total, 9 children, 9 families who never knew what happened to their babies. But the bins aren't the worst part. In the corner of the basement, there's a video camera on a tripod, old, the kind that used VHS tapes, and beside it, a box filled with cassettes, each one labeled with a date. Torres doesn't watch them, can't, won't. That's for the forensic team, for the prosecutors who will need to prove what Gable did, but he knows what's on those tapes. He knows because men like Gable don't just kill, they collect, they preserve. They return to their crimes again and again, reliving the moments when they had complete power over another human being. An evidence technician catalogs each item, photographs, bags, tags. The process is methodical, respectful. These aren't just objects anymore. They're the last physical traces of children who deserve to grow up. Torres finds what he's been dreading in the fifth bin, a child's wallet, worn leather. Inside, a school ID card for Jace Mitchell, 3rd grade. Arthur and Nora's phone number written in marker on the back. Torres closes his eyes. 31 years. 31 years this wallet has been in this basement, while a family tore itself apart, searching for answers. He bags the evidence, climbs the stairs, steps out into the morning sunlight that feels obscene after what he's just witnessed. Gable sits in the back of a patrol car, hands cuffed, face expressionless. He's watching the forensic team carry evidence boxes out of his house, watching his carefully curated collection being dismantled. And he's smiling, not broadly, just a slight upturn at the corner of his mouth, as if this is all part of some private joke only he understands. Torres walks over to the car, leans down, looks Gable in the eyes. 9 children, Torres says quietly. You took 9 children. Gable says nothing. You're going to spend the rest of your life in prison. You know that, right? Still nothing. Was it worth it? 30 years of freedom? Was it worth what's coming next? And finally Gable speaks. His voice is soft, almost conversational. I always knew someone would figure it out eventually. I'm actually relieved. Carrying secrets gets exhausting after a while. Torres's hand tightens on his notepad. You could have stopped. Any time in the last 30 years, you could have stopped. Could have, Gable agrees. Didn't want to? No remorse, no shame, no humanity. Just a monster wearing a human face. Torres straightens, walks back to his team, radios for additional units. Because what they've found in this basement isn't just evidence of Jace Mitchell's murder, it's evidence of a serial predator who operated freely in one of America's largest cities for 3 decades, not because he was clever, not because he was careful, but because the system designed to stop him was too broken to function. Across the street, Joel sees Torres emerge from the house, sees the look on his face, and knows with absolute certainty that his brother is dead, has been dead since the day he disappeared. All these years of hoping, of imagining scenarios where Jace was still alive somewhere, where he'd been taken but not hurt, where maybe, somehow, there could still be a happy ending. All of it was fantasy. The truth is in that basement, and the truth is worse than Joel ever imagined. Torres crosses the street at 11:47 a.m. Joel has been sitting in his car for 5 hours, watching evidence boxes carried out, watching the medical examiner's van arrive, watching his entire childhood reduced to case numbers and evidence tags. Torres opens the passenger door, slides in without asking permission. For a long moment, neither man speaks. We found him, Torres finally says. We found Jace. Joel's hands grip the steering wheel. Where? The basement. There are remains. We'll need dental records to confirm, but the clothing matches what you described. The wallet we found. I know about the wallet. Joel's voice is flat, empty. I saw you bag it. Joel, I'm so sorry. Don't. Joel shakes his head. Don't apologize. You did your job. Better than anyone else did for 31 years. There are 8 other families, 8 other children. We're starting notifications this afternoon. Joel closes his eyes. 8 other families about to get the call that ends hope forever. 8 other mothers who will collapse when they hear the words. 8 other sets of parents who will finally understand that the worst-case scenario was always the reality. How long? Joel asks. How long was he alive? Torres is quiet. I can't answer that yet. The medical examiner. Tell me. I need to know. Joel, tell me! Torres takes a breath. Based on preliminary examination and what we found in the basement, we don't believe any of the children survived more than 48 hours. 48 hours. 2 days of terror, of waiting for rescue that never came, of calling for a family that couldn't hear him. Joel feels something crack inside his chest. Not his heart, something deeper. The last fragile piece of hope he didn't even know he was still carrying. Does he know? Joel asks. Does Gable know we found them? Yes. And? He seems relieved, like he wanted this to happen. Joel's jaw tightens. I want to see him. That's not possible. I want to see him. I want to look him in the eyes. I want him to see what he did to my family. Joel, you can't. I spent 31 years of my life searching for this man. 31 years wondering who he was, where he was, if he even existed. My grandparents died without answers. My mother will never recover. I lost my childhood, my twin, my entire family to this monster. And you're telling me I can't see him? Torres stares out the windshield. If I let you near him, anything you say could jeopardize the case. His lawyers will claim intimidation, coercion. They'll use it to suppress evidence. Then I won't say anything. I just need to see him. Please. The detective is quiet for a long moment. Then, he's being held at the station for processing. Arraignment is tomorrow morning. If you happen to be in the lobby when they transport him to his cell, it's not permission, not officially, but it's enough. Thank you, Joel says. Torres opens the door, pauses. Joel, when you see him, don't expect closure. Don't expect him to show remorse or explain why he did it. Men like Gable don't think like us. They don't feel guilt. They don't understand the devastation they cause. I know. Do you? Because I've seen families confront killers before, they think it will help. Think it will give them peace. But it never does. It just adds another nightmare to the collection. Joel looks at Torres. I've lived with nightmares for 31 years. One more won't make a difference. Dallas Police Department, 6:30 p.m. Joel sits in the lobby, hands clasped between his knees, waiting. Torres was right. This won't bring closure, won't bring peace, won't change anything about what happened. But Joel needs this, needs to see the man who destroyed his family, needs to look into the eyes of someone who could take a child and feel nothing, needs to understand how a human being becomes a monster. I don't know what to say, she begins, her voice barely above a whisper. I've imagined this moment for 3 decades, imagined finally being able to lay you to rest. But now that it's here, I can't find the words. Joel stands beside her, one hand on her shoulder. His other hand grips a small action figure, Luke Skywalker, Jace's favorite, the one he was playing with the day before he disappeared. You were supposed to grow up, Diana continues. You were supposed to fight with your brother over who got the car keys, go to prom, graduate high school, fall in love, give me grandchildren. You were supposed to have a life. Her voice cracks. Instead, you got 48 hours of terror, and then nothing. And I got 31 years of wondering, of hoping, of lying to myself that maybe you were out there somewhere, happy, alive. Joel squeezes her shoulder. Your grandfather never stopped looking for you, never stopped believing we'd find the truth. He died thinking he'd failed you, but he didn't fail, baby. He was right all along. He knew who took you. He tried to tell them. They just wouldn't listen. Diana folds the drawing and places it on the small casket. I hope wherever you are, you know how hard we fought, how much we loved you, how your brother spent half his life searching for answers. You weren't forgotten, Jace. Not for a single day. She steps back. Joel moves forward, places the action figure beside the drawing. I'm sorry I couldn't save you, Joel says quietly. I'm sorry it took 31 years to bring you home. I'm sorry for every single day you spent in that basement while I was up here living the life you should have had. His throat tightens. But I kept my promise to Grandpa. I found him. I found the man who took you, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows what happened. I'm going to make sure the system that failed you never fails another child. He touches the casket, cold metal under his palm. You deserved better. We all did. But I promise you, your death is going to mean something. It's going to change things, because I won't let them bury the truth with you. The casket is lowered into the ground, beside Arthur's grave, beside Nora's, the family that was destroyed by one terrible night, finally reunited. Joel and Diana stand there long after the funeral director leaves, long after the sun starts to set, long after there's any reason to stay. Because leaving feels like abandoning Jace again, like walking away when he needs them most. He was 8 years old, Diana whispers, forever 8. while the man who killed him lived to be 74. Where's the justice in that? There isn't any, Joel replies. Justice would be Jace growing old. Justice would be the system working the way it's supposed to. What we have isn't justice, it's just the end of not knowing. Is that enough? Joel thinks about that, about 31 years of searching, about Arthur's obsession, about the war room filled with evidence no one wanted to see, about 8 other families getting closure they never wanted. No, he says finally, it's not enough. But it's what we have, so we take it and we use it. We make sure Jace's death exposes every crack in the system. We make sure his name becomes synonymous with why reform matters. Diana nods slowly. Your grandfather would be proud. Would he? We found Gable, but we didn't save anyone. Those other 8 children, they died because the system ignored Grandpa in 1995. What's there to be proud of? We exposed the truth. We held them accountable. We made them look at what their failures cost. That matters, Joel. It has to matter. Because if it doesn't, if Jace's death changes nothing, then all this suffering was for nothing. They walk back to the car as darkness falls. Behind them, fresh dirt covers a grave that should never have needed to be dug. And somewhere in that dirt lies the physical remains of an 8-year-old boy who loved climbing trees and making his brother laugh. But the real Jace, the one Joel remembers, isn't in that grave. He's in every memorial, every news story, every conversation about system failure and bureaucratic incompetence. He's become a symbol, a rallying cry, a name that reminds people what happens when systems prioritize convenience over children. Joel just wishes symbols could breathe. 3 months after Gable's arrest, Joel testifies before the Texas state legislature. The hearing room is packed. Families of victims, advocates, journalists, politicians who smell an opportunity to look tough on crime without actually addressing the root causes. Joel doesn't care about their motives. He cares about results. My name is Joel Mitchell. In 1992, my twin brother Jace was abducted and murdered by Sterling Vane Gable. Gable is currently awaiting trial for 9 counts of murder spanning 3 decades. He pauses, lets that sink in. Gable had a criminal record. In 1991, he was convicted of unlawful restraint of a minor in Tarrant County. That conviction should have disqualified him from working near children, should have flagged him in background checks, should have prevented him from ever being in a position to harm my brother. Joel pulls out a document, holds it up. This is the administrative form that was never filed, the box that was never checked, the paperwork that fell through the cracks. Because of this single piece of paper, Dallas County had no record of Gable's conviction when they hired him in 1992. Legislators shift uncomfortably. In 1995, my grandfather identified Gable as a suspect. He brought evidence to the Dallas Police Department. They dismissed him, called him paranoid, threatened him with harassment charges. 6 children died after 1995 because no one investigated his claims. Joel's voice hardens. This isn't just about one predator. It's about a system so broken that predators can operate freely for decades. We have 254 counties in Texas. Each one maintains its own criminal database. Each one has its own procedures. Each one operates independently with minimal communication. He leans forward. Do you know how many convicted offenders slip through these gaps every year? How many people move from county to county, evading warrants and probation violations because there's no integrated system to track them? Silence. Neither do I. Because no one is tracking it. No one is measuring the cost of these bureaucratic failures. We only count the bodies after they're found. Joel slides a document across to the committee chair. I'm proposing mandatory integration of all county criminal databases into a single statewide system. Real-time updates, mandatory cross-referencing for anyone working with vulnerable populations, and annual audits to ensure compliance. Mr. Mitchell, do you have any idea what that would cost? A senator from Houston asks. Joel looks him dead in the eye. Less than 9 children cost their families Less than 31 years of freedom for a serial killer cost this state's reputation, less than your political career is worth if you vote against it. The room erupts. But Joel doesn't care about being polite anymore. Politeness doesn't save children. Accountability does. Joel starts giving talks, schools, community centers, parent groups, anyone who will listen. Because Gable wasn't an anomaly, he was a pattern, and patterns can be recognized if you know what to look for. Sterling Gable operated for 30 years because he looked normal, Joel tells a crowd of 200 parents at a Dallas elementary school. He was polite, friendly, helpful, the kind of neighbor you'd ask to watch your house while you're on vacation. He clicks to the next slide, a photo of Gable volunteering at a church event. Predators don't look like monsters. They look like the most trustworthy person in the room. That's how they gain access. That's how they avoid suspicion. A mother raises her hand. So how do we protect our children if we can't identify threats? You don't try to identify individual threats. You create systems that make predation harder. You pay attention to patterns, not people. Joel advances the slide. Red flag number 1. An adult who seeks constant, unsupervised access to children. Gable volunteered for every role that gave him alone time with kids, park maintenance, church youth groups, Little League fields. He positioned himself where parents trusted him. Red flag number 2. An adult who gives excessive gifts or special attention to specific children. Predators groom their victims. They build trust. They make children feel special, so those children won't report what happens next. Red flag number 3. An adult who dismisses or pushes boundaries. If someone makes your child uncomfortable and then tells you you're overreacting, trust your child, every single time. An older man in the back stands. Are you saying we should suspect everyone? That sounds like paranoia. No, Joel replies firmly. I'm saying you should verify everyone. Background checks aren't paranoia. Supervision isn't paranoia. Asking questions isn't paranoia. You know what's paranoia? The police calling my grandfather paranoid when he identified a serial killer in 1995. The man sits down. Joel softens his tone. Look, I'm not here to make you afraid. I'm here to make you informed. Most people are good. Most volunteers genuinely want to help children. But systems work when we verify, not when we trust blindly. He clicks to the final slide. A photo of Jace, 8 years old, smiling, alive. My brother died because adults assumed the system was working, because no one asked hard questions, because trust replaced verification at every level. Don't let that happen to your child. Don't assume someone else is checking. Don't assume the background check was done correctly. Don't assume the system is functioning. Assume nothing. Verify everything, because the life you save might be your own child's. The room is silent when he finishes, but 3 parents approach him afterward with concerns about specific volunteers at their children's schools. Joel listens to each one, takes notes, provides contacts for proper reporting channels, because this is his life now. Not teaching, not researching, not the academic career he planned. This, warning parents, exposing gaps, fighting the bureaucratic inertia that costs children their lives. It's not the life he wanted, but it's the life Jace's death demands. By 2024, Joel Mitchell is a name associated with child safety reform across Texas. He's testified before 6 legislative committees, consulted on 4 major policy initiatives, helped pass the Arthur Mitchell Act, legislation requiring integrated criminal databases and mandatory reporting between counties. It's named after his grandfather, the man the system called paranoid, the man who was right all along. Joel wishes Arthur could see it, wishes he could tell him that 30 years of obsession wasn't madness, it was prophecy. But Arthur's grave sits next to Jace's now. 2 victims of the same system failure, separated by decades but united in death. The work is exhausting. Joel travels constantly, speaks to groups, meets with legislators, reviews cases, where the system failed other families because Jace wasn't unique. Every month, Joel receives emails from families with similar stories, children taken by people who should have been flagged, predators who slipped through bureaucratic cracks, systems that failed because no one connected the dots. He helps where he can, connects families with resources, pushes cold cases back into active investigation, pressures departments to reopen files they'd rather leave closed. His mother works alongside him. Diana Mitchell has become a fierce advocate, testifying at trials, speaking to media, refusing to let the system move on without accountability. Together, they've become what Arthur started, a force that won't accept. That's just how things are. In August 2024, Sterling Gable pleads guilty. His lawyer negotiates the deal, 9 consecutive life sentences without possibility of parole. In exchange, he provides locations of remains and details that only the killer would know. It's not the trial Joel wanted, not the public reckoning where every failure would be exposed in court, but it gives the other 8 families closure, gives them bodies to bury, gives them certainty instead of decades of wondering. Joel attends the sentencing, watches Gable, now 75 years old, frail, diminished, shuffle into court in shackles. The judge asks if the families want to make impact statements. All 9 families speak. Parents who lost children 40 years ago and parents who lost them 15 years ago, all united by one man's evil and one system's incompetence. When it's Joel's turn, he stands, looks at Gable, and says the words he's been preparing for 2 years. You took my brother. You destroyed my family. You operated freely for 3 decades because the system was too broken to stop you. But your arrest exposed those failures. Your crimes forced reforms that will save children you'll never get the chance to harm. Joel leans forward. You wanted to be remembered, wanted your actions to matter. Congratulations. You're now the reason Texas overhauled its criminal database system, the reason counties are required to communicate, the reason background checks are actually verified. Your legacy isn't 9 dead children. It's the thousands of children who won't die because the system finally works the way it should have in 1991. You lose, not just your freedom, your purpose, because everything you did now serves to prevent others like you. Joel sits down. Gable shows no reaction, no emotion, nothing. The judge sentences him to 9 consecutive life terms, 4 and 5 years in prison. He'll die there, old, forgotten, irrelevant. And Joel walks out of that courtroom knowing his brother's death finally meant something. 1 year after Gable's arrest, Joel stands in the war room one last time. It's been dismantled, the boxes packed away. The evidence donated to a victims advocacy organization that trains cold case investigators. The walls painted over, erasing 30 years of obsession. He is selling the house. Too many ghosts. Too many memories of the family that used to live here before July 14th, 1992. Joel runs his hand along the empty wall where Arthur's timeline used to hang. All those connections, all those dead ends, all those years of searching while everyone else moved on. His grandfather was right. About Gable, about the system, about the fact that justice wouldn't happen automatically. It had to be fought for, clawed out of a bureaucracy that prioritized convenience over truth. But Arthur never got to see it. Died believing he'd failed. Died without knowing that his obsession would eventually save other families. You ready? Diana calls from downstairs. Joel takes one last look at the empty room. Is he ready? Ready to close this chapter? Ready to accept that they did everything they could? Ready to believe that Jace's death led to meaningful change? No, he'll never be ready. Never be at peace with the fact that his twin is gone. Never stop wondering what Jace would be like at 41, what kind of man he'd have become, what jokes they'd share, what memories they'd make. But ready or not, life moves forward. Justice was delayed for 31 years, but it came, imperfect, incomplete, but real. Yeah, Joel calls back, I'm ready. He walks downstairs, out the door, away from the house where Jace disappeared and where Arthur spent 3 decades trying to bring him home. The house will be sold to a new family. Children will play in that backyard again. Life will continue as if tragedy never touched this place. But Joel will remember. Diana will remember. The families of 9 children will remember. And because of their refusal to forget, the system changed. It's not enough. It will never be enough to bring back what was lost. But it's something. And sometimes, when justice is delayed by decades, something is all you get. Joel drives away from the house for the last time. In his rearview mirror, the building grows smaller, disappears. But the mission Arthur started, the promise Joel made, continues. Because the war on system failure is never truly over, there are always more cracks for predators to slip through, always more children at risk, always more families one filing error away from devastation. And as long as those gaps exist, Joel will keep fighting to close them, not because it will bring Jace back, but because somewhere out there a child he'll never meet will come home safely because the system finally worked. And that child will never know their life was saved by an 8-year-old boy who died in 1992. By a grandfather called paranoid for telling the truth. By a family that refused to let tragedy be the end of the story. Justice delayed is justice denied. But justice fought for, justice clawed out of a broken system by people who refuse to give up. That's justice that echoes forward. That's justice that saves lives yet to be lived. That's the only justice the Mitchell family will ever get. And maybe finally it's enough. If this story made you think about the children who fall through the cracks, about the families destroyed by system failures, about the advocates fighting to fix what's broken, share it. Because stories like this don't just entertain, they remind us that justice isn't automatic. It's fought for by ordinary people who refuse to accept that this is just how things are. If this story got you, I've got 30+ cases just like it on this channel. System failures, ignored evidence, families fighting for decades. Subscribe and binge the whole catalog, and hit that bell so you're here when the next one drops. I'll see you in the next investigation.